Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is October
16th.
16th. Thank you. Monday night, October 16th. Are you ready for some football? No, that's not it. Are you ready for some Bible? There we go.
2023.
Okay. And it's 2023.
Yes.
October 16th, 2023, Monday night, Monday evening. And all right. So we left off at the 29th. We went through the 28th and 29th chapters of Deuteronomy last week, and this is some heavy-duty stuff. Curses and blessings and things like that. And this kind of thing paints an extremely terrifying picture of God. And
Right.
In that he offers blessings and curses for those who are his and their behavior. And the illustration that we have, yes, ma'am.
Are having babies a blessing? And what happens if you have twins or triplets or quadruplets back then? What do they call that? Is that a blessing or a curse?
Oh, that was a blessing. That's babies are a blessing. They're a blessing from the Lord.
Just checking.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
And
Okay.
so
They didn't ask.
grandkids are God's reward for not killing your kids when you felt like it.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. Because you get to spoil the grandkids and then return them to the parents. Here you go.
Right. Give them lots of sugar. Whoop,
Yeah.
whoop, back
So-
home.
Buy them drum sets and karaoke equipment and all kinds of things, and lots of sugar. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
go ahead, please.
no, I was just going to say those little things you drag along and it goes, nee, 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 and you want to throw it in the
Oh, yeah.
garbage.
Yeah, like the little telephone or whatever that makes its eyes move. Makes a squeaky noise as it's rolling. Yeah. For those of you who may pop in for whatever reason and you've never seen one of those things, never mind. So too hard to explain. So we were in Deuteronomy 28 and 29 last week, which is some heavy duty stuff. And God was talking about how he had delivered the Israelites from bondage in Egypt. That they knew freedom. Let me back up. The direct descendants of Noah's children, when at the end of the flood, God told them to go forth and subdue the earth and be fruitful and multiply. And they chose to ignore that. Instead, they all congregated down in Babel and decided that they were going to stay there and reach God. And so God confused their languages, and this scattered them. Now they couldn't talk to each other. Communication was impossible, so they were scattered throughout the earth so that they would go and do what God told them to do. Go out and subdue the earth and be fruitful and multiply, repopulate the earth. It was at that point God said he had had enough with the people of the world, that they were just disobedient and stiff-necked and proud, and they wouldn't listen to him. And so he turned them, all of them, over to the care of his subordinates, the powers and authorities here on earth that he puts in place. And he says, now you're responsible for them. You take care of them. I'm washing my hands of these people. And instead, he found Abraham, the man, or his name was Abram at the time. He found Abram, and he said to Abram, I need you to leave where you are and go where I tell you to go. And Abram said, sure, not a problem. And God said, this is my guy. He's obedient. He's compliant. I can work with this guy. And he says, he will now be my inheritance. The rest of the world I'm turning over to the other authorities and powers that be, but this guy right here, I can work with him. He listens to me. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me for interrupting. Did Abram know anything about God at that time?
Certainly.
He did, but
Yes.
they never spoke before?
I don't know I don't know whether God had spoken with Abraham prior to that, but what we do know is that Noah was Abraham's grandfather, and Noah remained alive for quite a while after the flood. And it's entirely likely that he actually dealt with Abraham. So Noah would have talked to him
Okay.
about God.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, so God says, Abraham is now my inheritance. He's the one that I'm choosing to save the rest of those people, the rest of them that I have disinherited at this juncture, because they can't be worked with. They're too proud. They're too stiff-necked. They won't do what they're told. They just have their own minds, and they're going to do whatever pleases them, and I can't work with them. They won't hear me. So let somebody else run that, and I'll work on Abraham, and Abraham will be my guy. And through his family, through Abraham's lineage, I am going to save all the rest of these people. And so that's the premise behind that. So Abram and his sister wife Sarai go where God tells them to go, and do what God tells them to do. And as a result of this, Abram and Sarah are becoming extremely wealthy, and they have cattle and lands and donkeys and sheep and goats and camels and cantaloupe and cheese whiz and
Rick.
small barbed fruit baskets
Cheez-Its.
of what's that?
Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its. They had an abundance of these things, and they were truly blessed. However, they didn't have children, and since they didn't have children, Sarai felt terrible because she could not leave Abraham with an heir. And for a while, they took Lot under their wing, their nephew Lot. But their combined wealth between Abram and Lot, their wealth was so great that they couldn't occupy the same areas. That it would just be impossible, because the number of livestock that they have would graze that area out and completely eat and consume everything there. And so they said, we need to divide up. And Abram said to Lot, pick where you want to go, and I'll take whatever else there is. And Lot said, I'm going down there to Sodom and Gomorrah, because there's a town, there's wells, there's whoopee cushions, they have Game Boy down there. Yes, ma'am.
Was Sodom and Gomorrah bad at the time, so to speak, when Lot chose to live down there?
It's very likely it was, simply because I don't think that it went entirely south in a very short period of time. But then again, when you look at our culture today, it's a fairly recent occurrence of just how far down the scale of immorality, or how far up the scale of immorality we have gone in a very short period of time. I'm trying to think of what's an appropriate timetable. When did 69, 67, the summer of love? That's when everything pretty much started to go south. It was at that juncture that for films and things like that, the board, the morality board, if you will, stepped away and said, we're not going to regulate films like that anymore. And that very year they came out with Rosemary's Baby, which had never been done before. And it was from that point on things started to change. The TV changed, movies changed, and these have great influence on people. These things have extraordinary influence on people. And so over the course of time, we've seen, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me again. Why would the board choose to step away?
I have no idea. I don't have an answer for that. I've often pondered that. Why would they do that? Money, maybe.
Money.
They were bought off.
I don't know that for certain. I would suspect that profit centers had a lot to do with that. But then again, at the same time, I think everybody this was the 60s, the wild and crazy 60s, and everything was relaxing at that point. Think about like Laugh-In, and where they had dancing girls, that was never done before. That had never been done before. I mean, the most The most provocative thing you saw prior to that was maybe Petticoat Junction, where the three daughters are at the water tank, and all you see are their shoulders and their heads. You get the appearance or the illusion that they are undressed and in this pool of water because they pull their dresses over them. But that was about as risque as it got. And then with Laughing, now you have dancing girls and scantily clad and tight clothing and everything else. And it's the whole free love deal. And music changed and all sorts of things. And that was a turning point, a tipping point in terms of events for our country, at least. The Beatles introduced Eastern philosophy and mysticism to the rest of the world, and it took off. And so now you had yogis and shaman and all sorts of things populating the culture, and it grew in influence even today. Today, the Eastern influences are enormous. You have yoga centers everywhere, and people dismiss that as simple calisthenics, but it's not. Yoga is part of a religious practice. Yoga is religious in nature, and as such, because if it was simply working out, why wouldn't they just call it that? Come to the gym and we'll do calisthenics or we'll do exercises, but that's not it. Yoga is a mindset. Yoga is a religion. Yoga is a spiritual experience. Yoga is not benign. There's an agenda behind that, and that's a lot of the Eastern mysticism. I mean, during that period in the late 60s, when things were in social upheaval and there was a lot of change going on, it was at this point that Roe v. Wade became the law of the day. Women were burning their bras and leaving their workplaces, and what was it? What was not girl power? What they call it? I don't know. You had Helen Gurley Brown and Cosmopolitan magazine and the women's empowerment movement, and at that juncture, well, with the outset of the government getting involved with Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, he recreated the plantation, created a welfare state. It broke up the black families. So the most of these families, the father was no longer present there. Removed from the home, single parenting took place. Divorce exploded in increase. Kids were left with one or less parents. Yes, ma'am.
I know you know this, but I'm just, for other people that don't know, the reason Lyndon Johnson is credited for breaking up the black family was because he introduced welfare.
The Great Society. He not only created a welfare state for those who were underprivileged. He targeted the black community specifically.
And
yes,
he
ma'am.
did, and he did because if the woman was a single mom, then she got more money. Is that right? Is that how?
Yes. Yeah.
She got more money for each child she had.
Each child.
So
Yeah.
if she wasn't married, she'd get more money.
Right.
Okay. Just clarifying.
Yeah. And so that was, the destruction of the family. You have latchkey kids, all of that. For those who were in the Chicagoland area, you had Cabrini Green, the Robert Taylor homes, these enormous high rises that were horrible. They were horrible. I don't know how these people were forced to live there, but they were stacked on top of each other with these little bitty places to live, nothing to do. I mean, crime became rampant. Everybody, I don't understand how it couldn't be. I mean, they've done studies on that where psychology and sociology, where they have taken, and these don't equate in that same way, just under their study. What they would do is they would take rats or mice and they'd put them in an area, and then they just overpopulate this area. And as a result of that, everything broke down. Any kind of family system or familial system or any kind of what appeared to be morality or systems along those lines just completely vanished. I mean, these things began killing and eating each other. It was just mayhem.
Yeah, you're talking about Rat City.
Thank you.
Yeah. And when that got big enough, The whole family unit disintegrated. The male mice were too lethargic to attempt to mate with the females. The females were abandoning their kids, and it's just rats stocked on top of rats. They didn't. It's fascinating study, but it's like you kind of see that starting to happen today.
Yes.
You know, you have men going their own way. They have no interest in women. You have women abandoning their babies, and it's kind of what we're seeing today. It's really scary.
It is. It's very scary. And the fact that somebody would think that study up and then actually do it, that takes a particularly strange bent. Who thinks of that? I'm sure in a passing thought, I wonder what that would be like, but to actually go and do it. And now, based on that social model, they have actually done this in real life. They did that. They turned it in. If you look at, there's some places in China where the high-rise apartments are they're blocks long, one gigantic building, with maybe 80 or 90 stories. The same within Russia, and just communities where people are forced onto each other. Well, in the 1960s, the Great Society, what happened was the African American population in the United States was tasting real freedom for the very first time with the civil rights movement and all the changes that were coming along. And Johnson came right along and put them right back on the plantation. Said, sorry, you can't do that. We will pay you to have children. We will pay you to have children out of wedlock. We will pay you. We'll provide these homes for you. We'll give you food. We'll give you money for food. We'll give you whatever. Get a civil service job. Get whatever. I mean, what a terrible thing to do to people. What a terrible thing to do to people. They weren't free to negotiate their own lives. They were not at liberty to do any of this. They trusted their government, who hated them. Because pardon me, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it because this is Johnson's exact quote. After he signed the Great Society into law, or established that program, his following words were, good. This will have those ends voting Democrat for the next 200 years. So that's what he thought. That's a direct quote. So this is, it's a terrible thing. All right, I don't know how I got started down that rabbit trail. How'd I get down there? Something about, society breaking down. But before that, what was I talking about? Does anybody remember? Because I've just been playing.
Abraham and Noah.
Oh, you asked about Sodom and Gomorrah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you asked me if Sodom and Gomorrah had been evil when Lot got there.
Because if it was, why would Lot
Thank
want to
you.
go there? If it was, why would Lot want to go there? That's why I was thinking that.
Well, why did people move to Las Vegas? Jobs, opportunity, land. Why do they move to New Orleans? Why do they move to Chicago? Why do they move to Los Angeles? Why, there's things to do. There's places to go. There's people to see. There's opportunities to work. There's ways to make money. So I imagine he was attracted to that. It's a huge city, two cities, twin cities. And so people congregate there. So otherwise, here's Lot and his camel and his wife and his kids and his abundance of animals, and they're out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm sure it's like at some point he's thinking, I have to find husbands for my daughters. I've got to find wives for my sons. We've got to find a good place to retire. This is as good as any. So they move in there. I don't think they understood what was going on there, but then again, you never know. So at any rate, God has chosen Abram and Sarai as his people, but they didn't have any children. And here she is in her advanced years. She's nearly 80, and God and two others show up with him, and they say to her, when we come back in a year, you'll be pregnant. You'll have had a kid. And she laughed at him. And so God said, why did you laugh? She said, no, I didn't laugh. He says, I heard you laugh. And so he changed her name from Sarai to Sarah, which means she laughed. And then, because prior to that, she had convinced her, what was she? Slave child? Worker, somebody. Midwife, something. She had
Handmaiden.
Handmaiden. Thank you.
Handmaid.
she had convinced her handmaiden to get with her husband so that he could have an heir, and that caused all kinds of problems because now this handmaiden has a son who stands to inherit everything, and she starts treating Sarai terribly, because Sarah's useless. She hasn't provided an heir, anything else like that, and she's being particularly mean to her, And so she's lamenting the fact that she agreed to let this woman into her home and into her house and into her husband's bed. And so when Sarai became pregnant, and now she's Sarah, when she's pregnant, now she kicks the handmaid out. We don't need you around here anymore. I have the real heir. The real heir is here. And so it broke Abraham's heart, because this is his son, and he's got to give up his son. But at the same time, it's like, so he goes to God and he says, please don't let him go away empty-handed. And God promised to multiply his son, and that they would be taken care of, and they would have an inheritance, and his offspring would be as numerous as the stars of the sky. And so he had a covenant with Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn son, to the handmaiden. But God also warned him, saying that he will be a wild donkey of a man whose hand is raised against everybody. And so that was the way things went. And so as Isaac, who was Abraham's firstborn and only born child with Sarah, as he had children, he had the two sons, Isaac and Jacob, and Isaac, or excuse me, he had two sons, Jacob and Esau, and Esau gravitated toward Ishmael, his uncle, and spent a lot of time there. And he took a wife from among Ishmael's clan, which displeased Isaac, his father's wife, Rebecca, and so she chose Jacob as her favorite, and got the birthright concretized. I'm going all over the place. I apologize. The whole point of this is God chose Abraham and Abraham's family to be his lineage, his inheritance, that through Abraham's family, he was going to bring restoration and salvation to all the people of the world. Okay, he promised not to destroy and flood the world again. But he made a plan of salvation for all. And so he allowed them to have this modicum of freedom. He allowed Jacob and Esau to go their own ways. He blessed Jacob, and then he gave Jacob 12 sons, and then he allowed these sons to gravitate into an area in Egypt wherein they would succumb to bondage. And over the course of 400 years, all of their liberties and all of their freedoms were removed from them. And the Egyptians treated them as slaves. They were the slaves of the Egyptians. And so they lived under slavery, until God decided to release them because the time was right. And so after 480 years, he sends Moses. And Moses is now, he says to Moses, I'm going to make you God to the Pharaoh, and you're going to negotiate on my behalf, and you're just going to lead everybody out of here, and I'm going to remove everybody in a single day from Egypt, and I'm going to have you guys plunder Egypt on top of that. And then he reiterated what he had said to Abraham and Isaac and to Jacob. I am your God, you are my people. There are no other gods as far as we're concerned. There's just me. And there are no other people as far as I'm concerned. There's just you. And so God specifically and personally led the Israelites, the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, out of Egypt and through into the promised land. And he's telling them along the way, I'm training you now how to live. I'm teaching you my ways, because you guys, I have a covenant with you that I'll be your God and you will be my people. And as long as we're together on that, things are going to work out great. I'll defend you. I'll protect you. I'll provide for you. All of these things. If you go south on me, and you join the rest of the world, then I really have no use for you. If you want to be those people, then you don't get what I'm offering you. But if you want to be my people, then I will bless you and bless you and bless you. And so in 28 and 29 of Deuteronomy, God is explaining to them that if they are disobedient and they reject God and they go their own way, this is what's going to happen to them. It's a warning to them, but it's also a promise to them. And this is just like what happened with Adam and Eve when they rejected God and chose the serpent instead. God says to Adam, you can't stay here anymore. And now I have to put you out of the garden. And life is not going to be easy for you. The ground is going to raise up thorns against you. You're going to survive by the sweat of your brow. You know, all the days you're just going to have suffering and hardship. You had perfection. You had paradise. You turned that down. Now you got to go do it on your own. I'll go with you, but I'm telling you, it's not the same thing. You know, and now where you had it wonderfully, it's not going to go well for you. And he was right, because one of Adam's sons killed the other of Adam's sons, you know, right off the bat, murder, you know, and so it just continued to go south. So this is God warning the Israelites in 28 and 29. If you go away from me, you're going to go into that wilderness just like your progeny Adam did, you know, and things aren't going to go well for you. And I'm going to make it especially hard on you because you've tasted the fruit of the grace of God. And having tasted that, rejecting that, now all you're doing is just bothering me. So there we go. Okay, there's multiple reasons why God demonstrates this, and the Bible goes through this. Because what happened was, God was leading the Israelites along because he had prepared a plan of salvation for all people. And that plan of salvation was that he himself, as he had been doing with Israel all along, he was the angel of the Lord, he was the messenger, he was all of these. Every time we read about the angel of the Lord, they're talking specifically about Yahweh, Jehovah, God. He was there doing that for them. He was the pillar of cloud, he was the pillar of fire, he was the Shekinah glory. He was all of those things. He was the angel that wrestled with Jacob. Every time it's talked about with the angel, we're talking about specifically God himself has come down and done these things. God in three persons showed up there to tell Abraham that his inheritance was about to take place, that he was going to have a son. So God is now telling them, go and work with me here, because if you don't, we're going to have problems. But he's also setting the stage, and has been setting the stage for his own arrival, so that he would pay the price for sin. He would redeem people through the family of Abraham. And so salvation would come to all the world. And when Jesus was on the cross, all of the curses that were laid out here in the Bible were poured out on him. Absolutely poured out on him, so that God would never have to do that again. So that he could relinquish any resentment or anger or frustration of anybody that chose to be his child. So from that point on, they were forgiven. Everybody's forgiven. Everybody is forgiven. Bar none. Yes, ma'am.
So no more curses. All the curses, everything was fulfilled.
Well, everything was fulfilled. Everything. Jesus said that. It is finished.
Okay.
Everything was fulfilled. However, if a person rejects that and instead says, I'm going to live under the law, or I'm going to take my chances with the world, and turns down that salvation, what can be done for them? Now they're subject to all those curses.
Right.
That's the result of that. Those curses are out there hanging out there. The law is out there hanging out there, and the law was never meant to save anybody. The law was given to convict everybody. We are all guilty under the law. Under the law, there is no salvation, which is why Jesus came along, fulfilled the law, fulfilled all the ordinances, and gave us grace instead. And so now we live under the grace of God. And God is no longer this punishing, angry God to those who believe. Those who do not believe, have rejected God. They're under his wrath. They're dead to him. They have decided they're going to take their chances, and they're going to live life on their terms, and they don't need God. They don't need salvation. They don't need any of that kind of thing. I'll do it my way. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. I'm good on my own. I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. I don't do anything bad. I'm not this. I'm not that. And I can give you the list of all the things I'm not, ignoring the list of all the things I am. And when people decide that they're going to play that kind of Russian roulette with the grace of God, then they suffer the consequences, because all 6 chambers are loaded against them. And so there's that. So what does God say to us? He does not make too hard terms for those who seek him, right? What he does is he says, repent. Stop doing the self-destructive things you've been doing. Just stop it. I'll show you a different way. I'll create a different path for you. I've already got it laid out for you. Repent of what you're doing. Stop doing what you've been doing. Instead, seek God. Confess your sins to him. Reject the world, be baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, so that you can receive the Holy Spirit. That's what he says to do. And then we go on our way. And then we continue to learn about God. We continue to work under his grace, and he little by little, slowly, under whatever experiences or situations arise, now we're being taught a different way. We're being taught a different way to live, and we are there to model that way of life to other people, so that they say, yeah, you were a turd your entire life, but something's different about you now. And whatever that is that's changed in you, how did you do it, and how do I get it? And so that's what we do, is we represent the Lord to other people, and other people say, I don't know what's going on with you, but man, I want what you have. Give me that. How do I get that? And of course the answer is, well, I don't have it, but I'll tell you how you can get it. So there we go. It was a long setup for chapter 30. How long did I go? Oh my gosh. I apologize. I've just been
No, because it makes it more understandable for me anyway.
Okay. Cool. God was a punishing and angry God because people were disobedient, rejected him, went their own way, did whatever they wanted to the point that they were killing and eating each other, literally, burning each other at the stake, setting fire to themselves, war, constantly. Just horrific action toward each other. Every person was doing what was right in their own mind, and it didn't include any love or any compassion for the people around them. And God was sick of it. He hated it. He hated seeing that kind of pain. We are his children. He loves us. He doesn't want to see us come to pain or come to any kind of damnation or suffering. He understands that there's a purpose for suffering, and suffering is given so that we will turn to God. That's why we suffer. He allows suffering so that we will relinquish pride and humble ourselves and turn to God and say, I can't do this. This is way beyond me. Would you please do this for me? Would you please be my God? And his answer is yes, unequivocally, yes. Did you hear that? So anyway, it was a text. But I thought I'd do a dramatic pause there. It was a text. So anyway, when people turn to God as a result of the suffering that they have been going through, they're in a much better position to receive God's grace, because they don't have to go through the filter of pride. I imagine God gets very frustrated, with us. He says, what are the scriptures? Yes, ma'am.
That's only if through the suffering we're humbled by it and we ask for help, though. Correct?
What? Please. What's the rest of that statement?
That you said that God, I don't
God allows suffering so that we'll draw close to him.
Right.
People, God will put them in positions where he calls to them and talks to them and calls to them and talks to them, and he sends her tapping them on the shoulder. Hey. hey, fine, okay, if you're going to do it your way, here are your consequences. And now you're going to suffer these consequences. And if while you're suffering these consequences, you continue to reject me, there's not a thing I can do for you. And it's going to get to the point that no matter what you do, I'm not even going to listen to you because you have rejected me so much. Now you'd better do a complete turnaround here. And when you do that turnaround, I'll be ready to receive you. Now we can work together. But what are the scriptures? Jesus humbled the proud, but showed grace to the humble. Constantly doing that. He didn't suffer the proud very well. And so, okay, does that answer your question or no?
Yeah, it's okay.
Well,
Maybe I didn't ask it. Maybe I didn't ask it the right way. That's all right. It's
you
good.
sure?
Yeah.
Please, if you want to elaborate, please.
I'm kind of distracted. I'd have to watch. That's all
All
right.
right.
I'll let it,
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
it's okay.
Okay. All right. So, how about those bears, huh? No, never mind. Anyway, they lost again. Still. So here we are at the beginning, chapter 30. Chapter 30, where God is promising, he's explaining to the Israelites, because remember that this is written to the Israelites. This is written to the offspring of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, the children of the promise, the children of the covenant. He's writing this to them because he has walked with them, he has been with them, he has defended them and fed them and cared for them this entire time from their deliverance out of Egypt to this very moment. And now he's talking to them about, because he has already said to them, in the future, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And now he's going to explain the other side of that. Chapter 30, verse 1. So it shall be when all of these things have come upon you, all the curses that the Lord was talking about, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind in all nations, where the Lord your God has banished you. Now we're talking after at this juncture, it's called the Diaspora, the dispersion, where the Israelites were dispersed among the world, and that actually took place. That took place at the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, and that was finalized in AD 132 with the destruction of Masada, and the Romans just leveled the place. They absolutely leveled the place so that Jerusalem and Israel and most of the places there were uninhabitable. And then they took the Jews were dispersed among the nations throughout the world, just as God said. And he's saying, so when these things have come upon you, and the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind in all nations where the Lord your God has banished you, and you return to the Lord your God and obey him with all your heart and soul, according to all that I command you today, you and your sons, then the Lord your God will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, and will gather you again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. Now, there was the Babylonian dispersion, the Babylonian captivity, which took place about 580 years prior to this, where they were conquered by Babylon and dragged into Babylon, and all of Israel was, and they remained there for 70 years, and then the edict came through just as God said it would. The edict came through that they were released to go and rebuild the temple. And so Nehemiah, who has a book in the Bible here, Nehemiah was commissioned to go back and rebuild the temple. And only the southern kingdom of Judah and Benjamin and Levi went with him. The other 10 northern tribes, they stayed in Babylon. And they were integrated into that culture, and then they went about their business because Babylon was conquered by Medo-Persia, and over the years they were dispersed among the nations there, the 10 northern tribes. Well, the southern tribes, the southern kingdom of Israel, that remained in Eretz Israel, or actual Israel. And they weren't dispersed until the Romans conquered them and crushed them. in the 2nd century AD. So he's talking about here. Moses is talking about not only is there the Babylonian captivity that resulted in the dispersion of the Jews throughout the world at that point, but he's also talking about the coming second version of that, which will be under the Romans. And the people will be scattered everywhere, but then they'll be restored. It will be restored to Israel. 4, if your outcasts are at the ends of the earth, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there he will bring you back. Now, this is some of the most wonderful and beautiful stuff we get to be alive to see happen. Because for the first time in 2,000 years, there was a Jewish Israel in historic Israel in 1948. In 1967, with the capture of the old wall and the West Bank and Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights, Jerusalem was under well, the east side of the western part of Jerusalem was under control of the Jews. In 1973, with the Yom Kippur War, they conquered Jerusalem, and for the first time, Jerusalem was under the control of the Jews. This was in our lifetimes. Well, most of our lifetimes. So this is prophecy being fulfilled. And then the Diaspora came to an end, because that began around the turn of the last century, 1900 and that, actually in the 1800s, when Jewish refugees were fleeing Europe from the oppression of the pogroms in Russia, and then later from Germany, and the oppression in Spain, and all over the place. And they started going back to Israel, and they started conquering the land there, and creating kibbutzim and collectives, farming collectives, and reclaiming the land. And then over time, when Israel became a nation again, a nation again, people started coming in from all over the world. Yemen and China and I'm thinking Afghanistan and Iraq and all over the place, Morocco and Spain. And these were people who spoke Hebrew and had a Bible that ended at that place that the Bible consisted of during the Babylonian captivity. So all the following books were not in their Bible, because they had stopped at that captivity. And the following books that were written, Nehemiah, Nahum, Malachi, all of those other books, they never got them, because they weren't there to do that. But these people are now starting to return to Israel. They're coming into Israel, and they're doing DNA tests, and they're finding out these are people that are Jews, Jewish people, genetically Jewish, who have been scattered around the world and are now returning to Israel, just like God said he would do. He's gathering them to him again. So we are living to see this fulfillment of prophecy taking place. And this is written, well, Deuteronomy. So here we're there. They haven't even gained the promised land yet. They're on the door of it. They're about to go in. Well, actually, yeah. Okay. The Lord your God, 5. The Lord your God will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. Which is true, because now they have electric lights and indoor plumbing, and they have fresh fruit, and they have, the internet, and they have all of this stuff. Whereas before, they had very more difficult times. 6. Moreover, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, so that you may live. So he's restoring them, and he's going to restore them spiritually. They've been scattered abroad, living under the Goyim, the Gentiles, and now he's bringing them back, and their love for the Lord will be restored to them. He'll allow their hearts to be unhardened, and they'll start to do that. And God says, the Lord, in 7, the Lord your God will inflict all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecute you. And you shall again obey the Lord and observe all his commandments, which I command you today. Then the Lord your God will prosper you abundantly in all the work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, and in the offspring of your cattle, and in the produce of your ground, for the Lord will again rejoice over you for good, just as he rejoiced over your fathers. If you obey the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, if you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul. For this commandment which I command you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it out of reach. He's saying this is doable. You guys have this. I've given you the word. I've given you instruction. I've given you very clear instructions. But now understand, in looking at the blessings and the curses, this is what the Jewish people grew up with. They've lived under that their entire lives. From birth to death, they are given over to the law and the commandments, and they are to keep the law and the commandments. They don't understand grace because they haven't received grace yet. Their hearts were hardened for a time so that the Gentiles could be allowed in. And this is the church age. But there's going to come a point where the church is removed, and then the Jewish people will receive Messiah and understand that grace is now here, and they are living under grace. And at that point, their evangelism begins to just explode. But it's also during one of the worst periods, the worst period in all of history. And so there's that. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Who's first? Nobody? Okay. Oh, cool. Cool. I just got your text. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So
Tell me if this is crazy, but so there seems to be this whole theme, like when you're talking about Abraham and you're talking about Cain and Abel, this whole theme of like the firstborn and the secondborn, and like the firstborn being skipped and the secondborn being skipped. And that's an obvious metaphor for like the Jewish people and the Gentiles. But is it also like, to me, it's like also like a metaphor for like God's first plan was obedience to the law, and kind of skipped over that firstborn and went to the secondborn, which is grace from the law. And so I don't know, that's just what was coming up for me as I was listening to talk about that, because there seems to just be that theme. There's always these two brothers, even in the parable of the prodigal son, Jacob and Esau. There just always seems to be two, and it's almost always the firstborn being skipped in favor of the secondborn. And God's
seems that way,
first
doesn't it?
choice, yeah, God's first choice was very obviously obedience in the garden. And then in response to that, okay, well, we're not going that direction, so now I'm going to introduce grace. I don't know. That's just kind of the thoughts that are spinning in my head.
Well, grace was always the plan. As he said, before the world was made, he had prepared a way for that.
Hmm.
So grace had always been on the table, because Adam and Eve lived under grace until they didn't anymore, until they disobeyed. And once they sinned, then grace stopped. Now they became subject to sin. And so grace was always on the table. God always knew that he was going to have to do this. And so I think part of that was because he wanted to demonstrate to all of existence how great his love is, that he loved the world so much. Now, let me back up. I'm trying to find it. I'm racking my brain for a proper example or metaphor or whatever here. Imagine you have hamsters, okay, and you breed hamsters, and you breed a particular kind of hamster, and nobody else has hamsters like these. These are you've done this. You have these hamsters. These are yours. And so So you know what you want to do with these hamsters, and you take care of these hamsters, and you're caring for the hamsters and everything else, and all of a sudden along comes a gerbil or a guinea pig and corrupts your pair of hamsters, your breeding pair. And now they're different. They're not the same, and they've disappointed you greatly. And you know that if you leave these hamsters in the environment, the breeding environment, that they're going to do is they're going to teach everybody that comes along terrible habits. You know, so you take them out of the cushy breeding environment, you put them somewhere else. You say, "Here you go. I'm going to set you free. You're out there. I'll keep an eye on you, but I don't want you here anymore. You kind of ruined the hamster farm." So
The gerbils, you mean?
no, the hamsters.
But the gerbils interrupted with
Oh,
the ham. So you
yeah.
took the gerbils and put the gerbils away, right?
Well, the gerbil knew better. Okay, we'll just say that the gerbil knew better. The hamsters didn't.
So that's why you set
Skip
the
the
hamsters.
gerbil. Skip the gerbil. Ixnay on the herbal J. Let's eliminate the gerbil. I misspoke.
Oh,
Okay.
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 Got it.
Okay. So,
Right.
so the hamsters are the ones you're interested in because you have been breeding these hamsters and you love these hamsters. You just love these hamsters. You know, you bred them to be whatever, everything that you wanted in a hamster. You've got them right there. And so now they're mean. They're mean and they try to bite you and they reject you and they run away from you and they're no longer friendly and they're not nice hamsters. And it's like, what in the world? I hate this. I hate this. You know, I've planted all these great crops for them. I've got all this food for them. I've spent a lot of time developing stuff for them. They don't want any of this stuff now. They want to go lay in the thistles. You know, so you got a bunch of hamsters and thistles out there hanging around the thistles, and they're
Their fur is
congregating.
getting
And
matted.
what's that?
Their fur is getting all matted.
The fur's matted. Their little stubby. Their tails are getting stubbier, even just stubbier. You know, they're just not. They could be so much more. You knew what they were. You know, but here they are, and they've rejected everything, and they're living in the thistles. Anyway, you know what has to be done, and you know that you're going to have to do it at some point because you knew that there was a potential for that because of the gerbils. Okay, because there are gerbils out there that are mean and rotten, and they can't be trusted. Okay, and you knew that if the gerbils ever got anywhere near your hamsters, the gerbils would find a way to corrupt your hamsters. Okay, because you've had experience with these gerbils, and these gerbils are untrustworthy. Okay, and they're jealous of the hamsters because you love the hamsters. Okay, we'll leave that there. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we'll put it right there. It's pinned to the wall. Leave the gerbils there. Okay. So now your plan is to redeem these hamsters, but they keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so you find out, okay, I'm done with this. You know, I'm just going to wipe them all out because they're horrible. These are horrible hamsters. They're killing and then they're eating each other. They're eating others. You know, they're gobbling up the ground. They're just evil. They're just continually evil. So you get them all together and you put them in a swimming pool and you fill the swimming pool and drown all these hamsters. However, you keep a couple around because they're the less evil breeding pair. So you keep some around to rebreed because you don't want to have to start this whole process all over again. You know? Okay. So out of these, you tell these hamsters there because you're able to communicate with these hamsters and you tell them, look, I want you to go out and just take over the farmland there. Okay. Just go take it over, you know, go breed, be happy, go breed, go be happy. And they won't do it. They're like, no, uh-uh. And so they sit in one place and they say, we're going to get together because you can't tell us what to do. And so they hang out there. And now they're just hanging out and they're doing all the stuff that they were doing before. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it's like, okay. All right, fine. Poof. Now none of you can understand each other. Okay, now they're all walking around like, you know, and they can't understand the language. So they scatter. It's like, I'm going over here because, you know, maybe there's other hamsters over here for whatever reason. They end up out there. Okay. But you see one hamster all by himself. And you go over and you pet the hamster and he responds. And you're petting the hamster and he's loving it. So you take the hamster and you hold him close and you love the hamster and you say, okay, I'm going to start over with this guy. I'm going to make this guy and I'm going to rebreed this kind of hamster. And then I'm going to let him integrate and tell the other hamsters how things are supposed to work. Okay. And how it's really supposed to work. Knowing that at some point these ones are going to turn all stupid too. You know, they're going to get involved with the other hamsters. It's going to happen all over again. But you have a contingency because you have the ability to become a hamster. So at some point, over the course of a very long time, on occasion, you will pick up a hamster out of your little group and you'll pick them up and you'll say, hey, take a look. This is me. I'm the guy talking to you. Okay. I'm the guy that makes the sun shine at night, or I turn on the light at night. I turn off the light in the morning, or whatever. You know, I feed you, I take care of you. Now I want you to go tell your other hamster buddies, I want you to do this. And so you put him back down there, and this is like, his hamster's like, wow. I just talked to the guy that operates the lights, and he's got all this stuff to say to you people. They're like, get out of here. You're nuts. You're nuts. So they stone him, or they beat him, or they chew him up, or they do whatever, you know, and they just reject it. And this happens several times. Finally, you realize, okay, the only way this is going to work is if I do it myself. So just like God has done for Israel, all of their existence, he does it for them. He does it himself for them on their behalf. So you become one of these hamsters. But you're still you. So you're out here, but you're also down here. And you can talk to yourself because this is just a little portion of you in this hamster, right? Okay, it's fully hamster, but he can talk to you. And you know, he knows exactly what you want him to do because you tell him, okay, do this, do that, do this, that. And he walks around, he says, hey, my father is the one that sent me here. And they're like, get out of here. You're like, no, seriously, you know, and he says this and this and this and this and this and this, and they're like, get out of here. And he says, look, I know what you people did to all the other hamsters that I sent down here, and I know that you're planning that kind of stuff for me too, but understand that I love you enough to do that for you. So go ahead and kill me. Go ahead, kill me, and then I'll show you that I am who I say I am, because I'll raise myself from the dead in 3 days. You know, but of course this doesn't make any sense. You know, they don't understand. So anyway, God knew from the very beginning that he was going to have to do this. He knew that he would have to remove sin from all of existence by apportioning his own life and giving that over in order to erase sin that was allowed to come into the world by other creations of his who were disobedient and rebellious and mean-spirited and the gerbils. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yes. I was
Every
waiting for
analogy
you-
breaks down, especially where hamsters are involved. But, you know, analogies are not hamster friendly. Yes, ma'am.
I was waiting for you to speak hamster
No.
or speak gerbil. Guinea
Nobody,
pig.
nobody wants to speak gerbil. I'm telling you here now. I don't know if you guys can see it, but the sunset here is spectacular. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful outside. On that note, I think, shall we continue, or is this a good place to close?
I'd be a good place to close.
Okay. Is everybody okay? Did I go too far down the rabbit trail?
The hamster
No.
trail.
The hamster
No.
trail?
That's
The
cute.
habit trail?
Of course. Up a trail.
Yeah, the habit trail. Sorry about that. I get carried away, but I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys putting up with me. Thank you for that. So, any thoughts, questions, comments about what we've read, gone through, gone over? Did Copper abandon us for his hammock?
No.
He's looking for the hamsters.
Yes, hamsters.
Right,
go.
Wow.
right.
He
Bring
heard
'em on.
hamster. He's like, where are they? Yeah, come on.
He's afraid the gerbils will come out.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, got to keep your eye on those long-tailed things. Yeah. All right. So, this isn't the puppet show week, right? This week we're not doing puppets. It's what, 2 weeks from now?
No, but you said you were going to show the little sheep.
Oh, I forgot. Okay. Really gonna make me get up and do that?
No, you don't have to. Never mind.
Okay,
Do it next
next
time.
week. Next week. Please
Now
wait.
we,
What's
well,
that?
then you better do it
What?
next week, because now we need to know what it is.
Yes.
Hey, here's a question. And I'm sure I could Google this too, maybe, but do you have a resource? Because when I'm reading the Bible and then they come to a name, I have a heck of a time discerning, is this the name of a person or a place? And because they're all like foreign names to me, you know what I mean? Like they were modern names, I could probably discern person or place fairly easily. But is there like a cheat sheet that has like, not necessarily like, I don't need the breakdown of lineage and who begot who and all that, but just like, if you see this word, it's in the name column. And if you see this word, it's in the
Strong,
place column.
Strong's
You know.
Concordance is a good place to start.
Strong's Concordance.
I'm pretty sure I have one here, and I'll get it to you.
What is it? What is it?
It's basically what Derek is talking about. It's a who's who and a what's what, and it breaks down names and places and gives you more details.
I don't
It
even
also
need to know. I don't even need to know what they are. I just need to know, like when I get to that word, they're talking about place. Because sometimes they'll say he went to
right,
such and such, and I'm like, did he go to a person or did he go to a city? I don't even know.
Right.
Need to know if it's a city or a country. I just need to know that's not a real person. That's a place, or this isn't a place. It's a person.
There's also a book called Who's Who in the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, there is that because there's a lot of people in the Bible.
There's a ton. Yeah.
Marilyn, go ahead. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Sorry.
What's wrong with
Can you hear
Maryland?
me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we can.
Oh, okay. Can it be Google?
Sure, you
Let's
can
see.
Google
Yeah,
it. That's
I might
yeah.
just Google it, but I was
Yeah.
just wondering if there was already a list like that.
Yes. There's a lot of them over the years. They've compiled all manner of information concerning that.
The challenge for me is I just want a list. I don't need to know, okay, this is a person and these were his kids and this is the years that he lived and this is what he I just need everything in the left column is a person name, everything in the right column is a place name, where I can just at a glance know I can
What
sort
it
out
is.
the who's who later on. But just in my normal Bible reading, it'd just be a real easy reference to have,
Let me see what I can find for you.
Yeah.
I know
I'll
that
Google it.
sometimes I Google blah, 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 and a little statement comes up from the Bible of what that thing is or what it is.
Yeah.
Because
just
I'm
trying
too
to avoid-
simple-minded, and it
I'm just
might
trying
not
to
be.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to Google while I'm doing while I'm doing my
Mhm.
Bible reading in the morning. I just
Right.
rather have like a cheat sheet, just an easy glance at it
Right.
and kind of know where I'm at instead of
You're looking for the easier, softer way. I get it.
4 or 5 paragraphs. Well, no, I'm just
Oh,
looking for
no,
the
it's not
original way.
easier.
You
Yeah.
know, the first century Christians weren't using Google to sort out. They already
That's
knew
true.
what was-
They weren't.
I was gonna say, if you can't find it, you can always patent it and have something like a Strong's Concordance, and you have a Derek
There you go.
Yeah.
Eric's Lazy Man Bible Study.
The Derek's list. There you go.
Derek's list.
And
There
it
you
would
go.
be in alphabetical order, so biff, you could find it right away.
If you can't find it, make your own.
Yes, they
Call
have.
it the
They have those kinds of things out there. It's just a matter of finding them. So I'll look that up for you if that's okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
no
let
problem.
you know.
I'm looking too right now because it just made sense. Like
Okay.
there probably is something out there, but more than 110 important people. I'd hate to be on the unimportant people list.
Yeah, that's all of us, right? So, okay. So, anything else?
Thank you.
Pizza.
If I have
Thank you
any
so
more-
much.
If I have any more questions after watching this again, I'll put it in the messages.
Please. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Who would like to pray us out of here? All right. Heavenly Father, thank you again for another wonderful study. Thank you for these wonderful people. Please bless them, keep them safe. Please lay your hand upon us all. Please walk with us. Please be with us. Thank you. Please forgive us our sins. Please forgive those that sin against us. Please watch over Terry and Karen and Sylvia. Please keep them safe. Please join us next week and for this week. Your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Close
you.
this out. Where's my freckle? Oh, there's my freckle.
Good
All
night,
right.
everyone.
And he goes away.
Okay, so
You're
see you
recording.
guys soon.
You're
See you guys
recording.
soon. Oh,
Stop.
no.
Record.
Am I?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. How do I?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.